Kia ora, Northgaters. I'm sure you would have heard by now that from Wednesday morning, people in Hamilton can meet in gatherings of up to 25 people outside. Can I suggest that this is a really good time to plan a picnic or an outdoor activity with your Connect group or several families from the church? And hey, why don't you invite a non-Christian neighbour or two along as well? Not only is it a lot of fun, but it helps us remain connected until we open the doors of the church again. Fiona and I really enjoyed meeting with another family from the church on Sunday afternoon to walk around Lake Tikotu, and are looking forward to expanding our bubble again soon with the easing of the current restrictions. On Sunday morning I began a two-part series on Jesus' encounter with the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4. And I left you with the challenge of identifying who metaphorically is your person at the well God has called you to share the good news with. During lockdown, personal evangelism can be challenging with the restrictions on being distant, but it can give us an opportunity to look at how we've been doing evangelism and community outreach, and if necessary, make changes. You know, this is going to be really important moving forward, because while we won't know the full impact of the current lockdown and the pandemic for quite a while, recent research from Barna Research that tracks church attendance and people's attitude towards the church has shown some really concerning results overseas, which many pastors I've spoken to expect to see in New Zealand. First of all, it's shown that among adults who attend church, 22% of them have stopped going to in-person or digital church. In other words, the church now compared to the church before the pandemic started has shrunk by nearly a quarter. What's even more concerning is that this research anecdotally has shown that most of this 22%, even when church has been open for several months, simply aren't interested in coming back. Also, society's views of Christians has also taken a bit of a hammering, because the goodwill the church previously enjoyed from helping the poor in their communities and running community programs such as food banks and the provision of second-hand clothing stores has been significantly undermined, whether rightly or wrongly, by what is perceived to be a large proportion of Christians who have refused to be vaccinated, and church groups have continued to meet despite restrictions on gatherings, arguably placing people's safety at risk and disregarding Jesus' command to love their neighbour. The protests organised recently by the Destiny and City Impact churches up in Auckland would be a classic case in point. Canadian pastor and church commentator Kerry Newhoff has also suggested a number of reasons why people and society are disengaging from the church in record numbers right now, which I also think are worthy of consideration. First of all, he believes churches have been over-focusing on content and programs at the expense of connection. But the problem with concentrating on content alone is that in this digital age, people can get great content anywhere, sermons, Bible studies, etc. So they do. Churches and Christians have also forgotten that one thing the church has to offer that others don't is connection, real relationship, both with God and with people. Content doesn't build church, relationship does. He also argues that the church has become so obsessed with trying to attract people through the door, it has stopped equipping them to be true disciples of Jesus. So when church has to close, people fall away because they don't have a deep relationship with Jesus without being propped up by the church. You know, they were attracted to the church culture or its leader and not in reality the person of Jesus. True disciples know how to follow Jesus and endure much better than Christians who place too much weight on a particular leader. Kerry argues we have fostered a culture of weak Christians because we haven't insisted on people being discipled either in one-on-one situations or in small groups. it's been enough for us simply to invite people through the door and leave it there. Kerry also highlights the abundance of Christian meanness on social media when he says we should know better. He says many of us forget whenever we post online, like in Facebook, etc., the world is watching or looking. So the world notices our cynical, angry, sarcastic comments when we keep posting against the government and people who have different views to us. And even though Christians are a very small part of the population, these rants and postings get shared and commentated on a lot because the internet strives on anger and conflict, and this whole situation leaves non-Christians wondering why Christians are so mean. And maybe while they're watching and listening to the comments we're making on social media, he says they're walking away and turning their back on church. Kerry says, and I agree, the last 18 months haven't been Christians' finest hour on social media. Time and time again, when the world needed love, Christians gave and still give judgment. Kerry also points to the fact that for many Christians, politics is becoming more important than theology. But we need to remember people aren't looking for our political views or ideological bent. They're looking to fill that hole inside them that can only be filled with God. Kerry finishes by saying many church leaders are about to face this truth. Unchurched people aren't looking for a Christian culture or clique. They're looking for Christ. And until they do, referring to church leaders, realize that, our churches will continue to shrink. Maybe it's time to put tribalism aside and get serious about being like Jesus so we can reach a hurting world. Hey, that's all from me today. Send me an email if you'd like to comment on what I've said. May you and yours be safe. God bless. Jonathan.